welcome to Tea and Strumpets, a Regency romance review. I'm Zoe.
And I'm Kelsey.
And today we are starting off Pride Month with a book that I am really looking forward to discussing with you.
Yes, I am too. I read this book before we even intended to put it on the podcast, so doubly exciting.
Yes, and it was on my list to read. I just hadn't gotten there yet, so it was excellent that it was time to do it for the podcast because then it bumped up the list.
Perfect. And this book that we are talking about is The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. And this is the second book in her Wild Wynchesters series. So she's not a new author for us because we have spoken about her on the podcast, but she is a new author on the pod because now we're actually reviewing one of her books instead of just talking about it.
Yes. So that means we have author facts this week.
Yes, we do. Very exciting.
So Erica Ridley is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of witty, feel-good historical romance novels. In her 12 Dukes of Christmas series, you can enjoy witty, heartwarming Regency romps nestled in a picturesque snow-covered village. After all, nothing heats up a winter night quite like finding oneself in the arms of a duke. Very true, huh?
Two popular series, The Dukes of War and Rogues to Riches, feature roguish peers and dashing war heroes who find love amongst the splendor and madness of Regency England. When not reading or writing romances, Erica can be found riding camels in Africa, ziplining through rainforests in Costa Rica, or getting hopelessly lost in the middle of Budapest.
From her fun facts, stupid things Erica has done and would probably do again. So she would crawl blind through a cave filled with mud and bat guano, touch a tarantula, move cross-country and out of country, knowing absolutely no one, fly upside down along a zip line atop a rainforest, let a Moroccan snake charmer wrap a constrictor around her neck, go skydiving, fall in love with Mr. Wrong. That's pretty great. Let wild monkeys jump on her head because she thought it would make a cute photo, eat forbidden food she knew would cause hives just because she loves the taste.
Oh, Erica, I think we can find ourselves in a few of those. Minus, for me, the Moroccan snake charmer. That's a no-go. That's a hard pass.
Yeah, and the forbidden food, I totally resonate with that because of all of my food allergies. But, oh, yeah. I will say also that I have actually interviewed Erica before, and that's been something that we put on the podcast. That was part of a series that I did in conjunction with the Escondido Library. So that's one of our Escondido Library chats, and we will link to that in the show notes because it was a wonderful discussion with Erica. And I think, like, especially if you read this or if you listen to this, then you would really enjoy also hearing her thoughts about the genre, because I believe we were talking about historical romance as well, specifically in that episode. And what is interesting that I was thinking about as we were reading her bio, and it's talking about some of her series. This series is definitely a Regency series, but it is a lot more diverse than the other books that she's written previously. And I think this series is drawing a lot more on her personal background. And I just have to say, I am loving this series.
Oh, I am too. I gobbled up The Duke Heist when we were given it. And then I had this book on pre-order. So it just appeared on my Kindle. And I was like, oh, yay.
Yeah. And then the next book, which is out soon. It was on our list of 2022 historical romance novels we just can't wait for.
I want to say soon, not now.
Yeah, and it's that absolutely gorgeous cover that features a Black couple in Regency garb, and I am so excited to read Graham's book, especially after reading this book, but let's talk more about this book first.
Yes. However, before we get into it, we have a history fact. Now, our main character, her talent within the Wynchesters is she is very good at putting on disguises and masking her identity. In fact, she has a plethora of characters she can draw from, and it is one of the fun things she does.
Shall we quickly mention one thing about the Wynchester family, which is that if you have not yet read this series, there's only one book that comes before it. There is also a novella, which I just want to very clearly say is not a romance novel. The novella is not a romance. In fact, it's a little bit sad, but it is background about the family. So I just do want to mention that there. That's 0.5 of the Wild Wynchester series. And then there's one, which is the Dukes, as we've mentioned. But this is a family of orphans who were adopted by an eccentric baron. And they all have these kind of cool talents that help them Robin Hood essentially, like, you know, steal from the rich and help the poor. So it is actually inspired by the TV show Leverage, if you've ever watched that.
Yes. So back to our main character for this one. She, as I said, she's very good with disguises. So I thought it'd be interesting to do a little bit of history in theatrical makeup.
Yes.
So I talk a little bit about just the history of theatrical makeup as well as prosthetics, because she uses prosthetics and like fake beards and things. So there's a little bit of a time discrepancy. She's a little early for her time, but we'll get into that in a second. So the use of cosmetics increased greatly during the 18th century. Women and men, to a lesser extent, painted their faces with lead oxide for a pale complexion and cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, for rouge. Both were poisonous compounds. With the widespread use of cosmetics, it was noticed that paler faces were easier to see in dim light. By the 1770s, the use of white paint was general upon the stage, even though it tended to conceal the expressive motion of the muscles. The introduction in the early 19th century of limelight, which was followed by gaslighting and arc lights, created the necessity for a more subtle use of cosmetics on the European and American stage. The actor's palette consisted at this time of white chalk, carpenter's blue chalk, papers impregnated with red coloring, and India ink. Some actors were known to make up their faces with whitewash rubbed off the walls, dust scraped from red bricks, and black from burned paper or cork, or a burned match. Credit for the invention of grease paint belongs to Karl Bodin of the Leipziger Stadt Theater. Wishing to conceal the join between the front edge of his wig and forehead, he mixed a flesh-colored paste of zinc white, yellow ochre, vermilion, and lard. By 1890, theatrical grease paints were available commercially in many colors, and other items of makeup also began to be manufactured for use in the theater. And this was found at Britannica.com. So I have a link that we will put in the show notes if you would like to read up more. Now for prosthetics. Prosthetic makeup, also called special makeup effects or FX prosthesis, is the process of using prosthetic sculpting, molding, and casting techniques to create advanced cosmetic effects. Prosthetic makeup goes back to the beginning of film with A Trip to the Moon, a French adventure short film where the man on the moon effect was accomplished using a combination of makeup and a prosthetic-type mask with added paste. The makeup artist Jack Pierce was another early Hollywood makeup artist, best remembered for creating iconic makeup worn by Boris Karloff in Frankenstein, his makeup for The Wolfman, and more. Modern prosthetic makeup was revolutionized by John Chambers, whose work can be seen in Planet of the Apes, as well as Dick Smith's work in Little Big Man, Stan Winston in the Terminator series, and Rob Bottin in The Thing. Many of the techniques developed during that period are still regularly used in the field today. Additionally, many of these artists taught and inspired the next generation of special effects makeup artists, who in turn developed more advanced techniques for effects makeup, including developing different materials, animatronics, and incorporating added computer elements. Whew.
Ooh. But yeah, I think that fake beards were probably around during Tommy's time, just because like they had wigs.
No,
You know?
and they do mention that. And I read a few articles. I thought that this Britannica article was just more on the makeup versus everything else. Talked a lot about masks used in Greek plays and the development from masks to actually having the actor's face. And so, yes, there were uses of false beards and things at this time. So there was, false beards and wigs. She incorporates that a lot, but then she also talks about making her nose look slightly misshapen or, adding in the wrinkles around a face, which can be accomplished with makeup. So it's very interesting because in the book, you actually get scenes where she's applying the makeup and kind of Philippa gets to watch her transformation.
Well, it's crazy because even today, that is such a fascinating thing to humans, right? Think about all the Instagram videos that you can watch where makeup artists transform themselves into characters. There's a lot of people that'll specifically just be able to change the way that they look and make themselves look exactly like someone else just with makeup. So It's amazing how enduring that idea is.
One show I love on Netflix is Glow Up, which is a BBC series, and it's all about finding the next big makeup artist.
Ooh.
And so they run through a series of challenges for makeup. You get, more commercial, styling makeup for glam looks, but then you also get really amazing transformative makeup as well as, applying prosthesis and different challenges. And it's really fun to see what they all come up with.
Yeah. I think it's also funny given my current lifestyle. I used to wear makeup to work every day. Not a ton. I'm not a huge, I'm not sitting there doing contour in the mornings. But, I'd put on a full face of makeup, I would say. And then since the pandemic, I just haven't. And it's kind of freeing to also just not do makeup and to feel really confident without it. But then it's also really fun to put it on. So
I always love it because I am not, for years, I haven't worn makeup to work or anything. And it was always really funny when I do put on makeup, even to this day. I'll put on bare minimum makeup. I mean, barely any foundation, a little eyeliner and mascara. And then I'll go to walk out and my husband's like, whoa, what's going on? Why are you wearing makeup? Are we doing something special? It's no, I just felt like looking a little bit more put together today.
Oh, Kelsey, what a life you lead, you poor thing, to have such flawless skin. No, I'm just teasing you. Well, let's get back to our book and the main tropes. So our main tropes for this book are the blue stocking and the rake. Tommy admits she's a bit of a rake. She's gotten around. She likes to have her affairs.
Yes. We also have a fake courtship.
Yes,
that is another running theme through this. And in fact, it becomes a bit of a tension point between our main characters, who are Miss Tommy Wynchester and Miss Philippa York.
And before we get into our synopsis, I just want to quickly talk about the fact that Tommy, Thomasina Wynchester, she would probably be considered non-binary by today's standards because of a few different quotes that happen in the book, which probably I will bring up for my favorite quote. That makes that pretty clear. However, the author uses she, her pronouns throughout the whole book, and Tommy refers to herself. Tommy refers to herself as she doesn't feel like she's either a man or a woman. So, but at the time there wasn't terminology for that. Regardless, I think we're going to go with she and her for Tommy because that's what the author does. And then I was like, okay, well, does that make this a lesbian or sapphic romance, or is this just a queer romance? And then I said, well, it certainly doesn't matter. It's a great romance.
It is. It's a romance, and that's all we're really caring about today.
Yes. But listeners, if you have some thoughts or questions surrounding any of that, we'd love to hear them. As always, our email is romancepod@gmail.com. So, Kelsey, shall we get into our synopsis?
We shall. Tommy Wynchester is in love with Philippa York. The only problem is Philippa has no idea Tommy exists. This is due to the fact that Tommy has only been introduced to Philippa as Great Aunt Wynchester, the doddering old lady who attends her weekly reading circle with her niece, Chloe, Duchess of Faircliff, formerly Chloe Wynchester, who also Chloe does, happens to be married to the man Philippa was supposed to marry.
But Philippa wishes Chloe no ill will, and Tommy enjoys their weekly meetings in Philippa's parlor. Tommy especially, because she's had a crush on Philippa for months now.
Philippa's reading circle is her escape from polite society, and her mother, in her quest to marry Philippa off to a title, is constantly trying to undermine the endeavor.
It is during these reading circles that we get our mission for this book. Philippa's friend Damaris has created a cipher from an illuminated manuscript written by one of her ancestors, but her uncle, Captain Northrop, went to war and taught the cipher to others, all while claiming it as his own. Now he's about to have a viscountcy bestowed upon him for his actions, and Damaris's work will never be acknowledged. This simply won't stand for the ladies of the reading circle, and they engage the help of the Wynchesters to expose Northrop for the scoundrel he is.
During the operation, Philippa discovers a letter in her copy of the illuminated manuscript. It appears that there is trouble in the history of these manuscripts, for they were not truly written by the man who claimed authorship, but by his cousin and her lover, 2 women. This sets off another quest to uncover the truth and bring justice to the authoresses.
Soon after the operation begins, Tommy meets Philippa as a different character than Aunt Wynchester, Baron Vanderbean, the heir of her adopted father, and begins a courtship of Philippa to help with the operation, and because her siblings bet that she cannot actually have a normal conversation with Philippa.
Things go surprisingly well, although Philippa's mother is not interested in a real match with the Baron, as his family is scandalous, but being seen with a Baron will increase Philippa's chances of finding a more suitable suitor.
However, Tommy soon realizes that she needs to confide in Philippa. Seizing her chance, Tommy unveils her secret identity to Philippa in an effort to help her in her quest to get justice for these authoresses.
Philippa is astounded to see Tommy in all her different characters, but the ruse of Tommy being the new Baron Vanderbean and acting as her suitor seems to be the answer to all of Philippa's prayers. She is allowed freedom and adventure without the constraints of society, which she loathes. Plus, she gets to meet all the Wynchesters and just loves the way the family functions.
While they are running the operation, Philippa begins to get annoyed with Tommy. She wants to be part of the adventures, something that she's never been allowed, and yet Tommy is determined to protect and shield her.
After an argument, Tommy relents and even enjoys having Philippa in on the Wynchester plots. Things start to get complicated when Tommy makes it clear. Things start to get complicated when it's clear Philippa is just as attracted to Tommy as she is to Philippa. Philippa, for her part, sees the answer to all the problems is for her to marry Baron Vanderbean. Her parents will relent and she'll be free to live her life with Tommy how she wishes, especially when her mother reveals that she is angling for Philippa to marry Captain Northrop, our evil villain.
Tommy is not okay, though, with the plan to continuously be the Baron. She is not Baron Vanderbean, and she wishes to live her life as Tommy. She loves her characters, but that's just what they are, characters. If Philippa wants to be with her, she has to choose her.
It takes Philippa a minute, but she finally understands what Tommy's issue is.
Yes.
Love aside, there is a villain to unmask. Tommy, in her effort to protect Philippa's reputation, has formulated a plan to have an exposé published in all the newspapers in town. However, having learned something from the Wynchesters, Philippa is no longer satisfied with an end that does not leave Captain Northrop publicly humiliated.
She tells Tommy that enough is enough and he is going down in front of all of his peers. So at the ball honoring his heroism, Philippa asks Northrop to read a note. The note is written in the cipher created by Damaris. When he fails to properly read it, Philippa has Damaris tell the entire crowd what it says, and then proceeds to have it verified by Northrop's commander. Damaris is publicly acknowledged by all as the creator of the cipher, and the real authoresses of the illuminated manuscript are revealed in their own way as well.
The next day, Philippa is ecstatic until her mother tells her that she is done with all her friends after ruining herself at the ball. She basically plans to lock Philippa up until she can come up with a suitable match.
With renewed vigor, though, Philippa tells her parents that she's done with their matchmaking shit and that she is going to go live with Tommy at the Wynchesters' home.
And they live happily ever after.
Yes, they do. Tommy builds Philippa a wonderful library.
I know, it's the best thing ever. I should have said she planned in that she's going to go live with Tommy and all her books at the Wynchesters' home.
Yes. Oh, so great. Well, I want to talk about this. So first, though, shall we adjourn to the parlor?
We shall.
All right. So today in the parlor, we're going to talk first about our Patreon because our Patreon's still fairly new and we are so blown away by all your support already. But if you haven't already joined us on Patreon, now is the time, isn't it?
Yes, now it is the time. We're getting so close to reaching our first goal. And with that first goal, we will be having a raffle with a special gift from Zoe and I. You will get a gift card to a book retailer of your choice, as well as a special book-inspired box of goodies from Zoe and I.
Yes, I've been culminating the list in my head of what I want to send you because I think I'm going to have to send them to you and you're going to have to send it out because it's going to be close to baby time.
Yes.
So I'm like, what do I want to make sure is in the box for me? I should get those sent up to Kelsey's right now because I'm very excited about it. So some bookish items, some tea items. So that is when we hit our first goal, all of our patrons that have joined within the month of hitting that first goal are going to be entered in that raffle. And our Patreon, first of all, we didn't even say where you can find it. That's patreon.com/T as in Tom, N as in Nancy, Strumpets. But we have tiers that start at $3 a month and go up to $10 a month. And we're just so thankful for all our patrons already. In fact, we've got some extra bonus material that went up just for our patrons that if you join now, you can listen in on.
Yes. So if you would like to hear Zoe and I thoughts on the latest Bridgerton news, we've been keeping our thoughts as close to under wraps as we can. And we will be sharing that with all of our patrons so they can get our latest opinions on the newest Bridgerton news, as well as other fun things from Zoe and myself. You want to see pictures of my dogs? I might be putting them on Patreon. Just saying.
Dog pictures are great. That's a great idea. I could also put up my chicken pictures of Penelope Featherington, my chicken.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how that goes. But anyhow, again, patreon.com/TN Strumpets is where you are going to find that. We have another announcement before we remind you of all of our other social places, which is that we guested on Pod and Prejudice.
Yes, we did guest on Pod and Prejudice, and those episodes are out now.
At least one or two of them are, but
yes.
There are 3.
Yes, there's going to be 3. We were invited to watch the 2008 version of Sense and Sensibility and share in a discussion about it. We've had a great time with the girls over at Pod and Prejudice, and we hope that you guys check them out and listen to our stuff there.
Yes, please do. It was a blast, and I'm really excited for all 3 episodes to be out and for everyone to get to hear our opinions on that.
Yeah.
I have opinions.
There's opinions to be had, guys. You know how we like opinions. Also, yes. Tangents galore.
A few tangents, but really fun ones.
And if you would like to support us in a non-monetary way, you can find us on social media at Instagram and Twitter at T as in Tom, N as in Nancy Strumpets, Facebook /T as in Tom, N as in Nancy Strumpets, as well as on YouTube by searching our name and subscribing to that account.
Yes. And of course, if you'd like to sign up for our email notifications, that is via our website, romancepod.com. And there you can find all sorts of extras and blog posts and more information about us and other resources. So take a look. All right. So this was such a interesting read.
Yes, it really was. Lots of adventure, lots of crazy plots. We got to know some of the other Wynchesters better, including the mysterious Graham, who we get to read a book about soon. And also we got to learn a bit about Tommy. And I really loved how it wasn't just a story about Tommy falling in love with Philippa and doing that, but it was also Tommy coming to terms with the changes within her own family.
Yes, for sure, because she was kind of dealing with the loss of her father figure, but for her, it's her father. And also the loss of her sister, who she has grown up with her whole life. They were both orphans at the same orphanage, and they were two peas in a pod. And now her sister is married and is a duchess. So there's a lot of things that go along with that. And so, yeah, she's really like trying to kind of find her identity.
Yes, the identity of Tommy and not Tommy's characters. Again, this plays a really big part in the romance. As we said, one of the pivotal parts of the romance is the fact that Philippa sees all the answers to her prayers as being Tommy's characters and Tommy just being in character. And Tommy's like, yeah, but I'm not going to live my life in character.
I think it's really interesting because the namesake of this book is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, the movie. And
which is also a book.
A book. Yeah. Most good movies were books first, huh? But as I was Googling some things about it, and it says from Spark Notes here, The Perks of Being a Wallflower champions and celebrates inclusivity and tolerance by showing both how people can blossom when they are accepted for who they are and how painful life can be for people who are ignored or mistreated. And I think the book here absolutely is doing the same theme. It's showing how painful it is for Tommy to not be accepted by the woman that she loves as herself, as well as some other more nuanced parts of the plot we didn't really touch on in our
brief synopsis.
Yeah. But also, man, Philippa is the ignored.
Yes, she is the ignored and the put down. And, she saw protection in being a wallflower, but it also was her own cage, essentially, that she's put herself in.
Yeah. I mean, she just was trying to make her parents happy. And her parents never really cared about her. Her mom really wants her to make a brilliant match to help her dad, who's an ambitious politician. But then at the end, her dad ends up kind of being her champion. But it just seems her parents' relationship with her and with each other was kind of threw me off. I had a difficult time because Philippa seems almost abused by them, to neglected.
Yeah, she's definitely neglected by her father. There's almost no relationship there. And her relationship with her father is that he's never there unless her mother deems her so in trouble that, she needs to have a talking to from her father. And her mother just wants to run her life and is constantly berating her. And the things that Philippa gets joy in, her mom tells her, are worthless and they're going to be her downfall. And she needs to stop doing that. In fact, her mother's way of showing her displeasure is by isolating Philippa from her friends.
Yeah. And it's just so sad and misguided. But then there are some moments where Philippa seems to definitely be the bigger person, where she sees that her mother is trying and doing the best that her mother can. that literally, like, she understands and accepts her mother as who she is, but her mother has no idea who Philippa is.
Yeah.
And so, like, in a way, she is the mistreated and ignored one, you know? And so I definitely, like, we're kind of talking about our heroine here, Philippa. I definitely found her super kind of sad but interesting, and it was really nice to see her get to blossom and call out this horrible man.
Yeah, and I like that she took it. You know, she had an out. She was given an out to not be the one that was center stage and to not be, you know, and to stay protected and stay, you know, within her own personal confines that she's almost created for herself. And yet she's like, no, I am done with this crap. Like, she, you know, I think that one of the things it is when you are with people who are people who truly love and support you, you know, they encourage you and you feel that you can be brave and do things you can never imagine doing because you have that support of the people next to you. And, you know, they encourage you to be the best that you can be. And so, you know, that's just what's I loved about the ending was Philippa finally was like seizing everything that she wanted. And, you know, she still was going to try to be the good girl to her parents. And then her mom was basically like, your life's even going to get worse. And she's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Philippa had a lot of growing to do in this book, right? Because she had always just kind of been dutiful. And she had always wondered why she didn't, like, why she wasn't attracted to anybody, like anybody at all. I have a little quote here that's from early on in the book that I liked that kind of describes the way that she feels about herself. Philippa's heart didn't pitter-patter or leap for joy or skip a beat or any of the other things it was supposed to do. It just carried on day after day, year after year, performing the same steady, predictable routine without excitement or drama or making any deviation from what it had always done. Much like Philippa, even if it made her want to scream. So, I mean, I think it's just like she has also like, she has not explored her own sexuality and, you know, hasn't ever thought of anything other. She's obviously not attracted to men. There's not a man who's ever made her heart pitter-patter or flutter.
In anyone.
Even the Baron Vanderbean, they have the most chemistry, but I think that there are things where she just goes like, like
she's like
I wish I really enjoy being with him. I'm like actually sort of flirting because it's easy to banter with this person, but I don't feel attracted to them. So I think that that's interesting because she's got that big part of her journey as well.
Yes, but I also think too, it's, you know, and it's not like when Tommy reveals herself, Philip is suddenly like, oh my gosh, yes, I am in love. Yeah. It's a growing thing. You know, again, like I said, part of her love of Tommy is also the love Tommy gives her in the sense of like it builds her up and makes her feel like she isn't different. That, you know, like she says, you know, Tommy can do things that actually do leave Philippa a little bit breathless. And that's a surprise to her. And that makes her want to pursue it more.
Yes. Well, I'd love to rate Philippa, though, you know, from the beginning of her journey to the end. How about you?
Yes, I would love to. I think that Philippa is an 8.
Yeah, she's really interesting. I don't know if she quite had the dynamics that I was hoping for. And she kind of, you know, she doesn't get it at the end of the book with Tommy. You know, it's a little frustrating when Tommy is like, how could you ask me to live as Baron Vanderbean, you know, forever? Like, that's not who I am. However, I have to say, I think that Philippa maybe represents a lot of us who go into this book, because I think I did, thinking, oh, well, it's cool that she dresses as a man because then there's a way for them to get married.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah.
And so I don't begrudge Philippa seeing that as an option. I think that we as the reader kind of also maybe grow through Philippa's eyes and realize, like, actually that's not a great fate. That's not a fair fate for this couple. Like, that's just, it's not right. So, like, Philippa is part of my own naivety coming into this, right? And teaching me something. However, regardless, I just didn't quite love Philippa maybe as much as an 8. So I'm going to say a 7 for Philippa.
That's fair. I mean, like, there's definitely things about Philippa I didn't like, but that's why I rate her an 8. I think that overall her journey was more the inspiration for that, because while there were times I was like, come on, chick, like, get it together, you know, like.
Yeah, I should probably read this passage, actually, you know, because I was saying something about how she hadn't been attracted and her heart hadn't pitter-pattered. So this is an interesting thing, because I think that there's just a lot of ambiguity, and I think that each of us can interpret everything a little bit different with these characters based on our own experiences. So this is from Philippa's point of view. Was that why she had surrounded herself with other ladies all her life? But she hadn't been romantically attracted to any of her friends. And Tommy wasn't a lady. At first, it had been hard to understand how Tommy could feel both like a man and a woman. Both and neither, she'd said. Philippa admired and desired Tommy exactly as she was. Perhaps Tommy was what Philippa had been looking for all along.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely beautiful. And maybe we don't need to work so hard to try to define it.
Exactly. There you go. And so we've talked a bit more about Philippa, but let's talk about Tommy. I mean, we kind of talked about her a bit at the beginning, and you know, I think that Tommy's journey was also just as interesting as Philippa. You know, I think that we got a bit more of Tommy's past. I felt I really understood Tommy's feelings. Like, I really felt her sadness at having lost the closeness with Chloe. And she even talks about how, like, she knows Chloe's always there for her, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as looking over and seeing Chloe, you know, in the parlor. Or the Wynchester war room, I should say.
Yeah, and I just think Tommy was such an interesting character to have someone who is non-binary by what we know today, and seeing how the author really encapsulated that on the page. I thought it was so well done. Now, again, I don't have a lot of experience reading other works with other characters like this, but I really hope people keep writing this, because I find it interesting and educational and wonderful. So, but yeah, I think also besides her sexuality and her gender, I think that Tommy was so cool.
She was.
I love that she's this rake. Like, she really is. She's had a lot of sexual relationships. She really enjoys sex, but she also is so, like, bumbling around Philippa. She's so nervous.
You know, they're always so funny, because they're like, when are you just going to talk to her? When are you going to not be like great Aunt Wynchester? And she's like, I'll get there. Okay, I'll get there.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like, her characters, all the characters she plays, and her personal skill within the Wynchester family is such a fun one. Like, it's such a really fun one. And so, like, I think that as a character, Tommy is just, like, such a great character.
Yeah, I could really visualize it. And the way it's described, like, when she transforms, there's a scene that, you know, she basically goes from, like, Tommy talking to Philippa, but in, like, great Aunt Wynchester, like, garb. And then, like, the door opens and then Tommy, like, transforms back. Like, there's a little, like, she physically almost, like, changes shape. in order to be this character. And it's really so descriptive, and you can really see the change. And even Tommy talks about it like, oh, I'm going to be like this sailor now. So I'm going to lengthen my stride. I'm going to have a bit more of that swagger. I'm going to have that looseness of limb. It's just so cool how she kind of talks about that.
Yeah. I love her. Well, and since I shared a quote or two about Philippa and her sexuality, not that I want to completely, focus on gender and sexuality here, because like I said, there's so much more dimension to the character than that aspect. But I think the author does a much better job talking about it than I can. So I want to share this. So this is from Tommy's point of view. She might not feel like a woman, but she was one, physically, which meant she didn't have the same freedom to flirt and fail like would-be rakehells did at society balls. Not with someone like Philippa. Tommy didn't want to be Horace Wynchester permanently any more than she wished to live her life as a lady, but indulging her masculine side afforded her the freedom to court Philippa openly. So there's our dilemma, right in the beginning of their kind of the beginning of their relationship, shall we say. And then here's a conversation between Thomasina and Philippa. So Thomasina, as in, you were christened Thomas, but you feel as though you were a woman? No, he said. Thomasina, as in, I was born Thomasina. This is when she's dressed as the Baron Vanderveen. And she's revealing herself to Philippa. Sometimes I'm more like a man and sometimes I'm more like a woman, but mostly I feel like both. And neither. What you're seeing are cosmetics. He gave a crooked smile. I couldn't grow a beard if my life depended on it. I've always been more comfortable in men's attire, but beneath these pantaloons, I've the same parts as you do. And then later, a couple lines later, a woman who felt like a man. Did that mean Thomasina was lesbian? No, she hadn't said that. She said she wore disguises. And really, was a costume such a surprise? The Wynchesters were constantly on missions to save this person or right that wrong. Philippa supposed assuming temporary identities should be very much a part of the job. She just hadn't expected the Baron to be a woman. Anyhow, I think that kind of gives you, if you haven't read the book yet, a little bit of flavor of kind of how they operate with each other.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really loved Tommy, though. I mean, I like the Wynchesters.
Yeah. So what would you rate Tommy?
I think Tommy is such a dynamic character. I think she deserves a 9.
Wow, there you go. I will also give her a 9. Because I agree. There was definitely a lot about her. I didn't find a lot of fault with her, honestly. Like, I thought more like she had her hang-ups, but a lot of them were deep-seated and like heavy emotion, which I thought like really fit with the character. So it's not like I was like, you're being naive or you're just not paying attention. It's more like, no, you're really actually, you dealt with some emotional trauma and now you're dealing with it.
Yes, for sure. Well, do you have a favorite quote?
I have 2 highlighted quotes here. So one I think is just really lovely, and it's when basically Philippa comes to Tommy and is like, I love you for you. You don't have to be the Baron. Like, I'm just going to love you for you. And so it's, my beloved Tommy Wynchester. Eyes beseeching, Philippa lifted Tommy's hand to her lips for a kiss. You are perfect exactly as you are. I love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be. With me, you can always be Tommy, and it will always be more than enough. Which I just think is so perfect, especially based off the quotes like you read earlier about like the change and the understanding. I just loved this little moment of like Philippa voicing that acceptance to Tommy, not just feeling it, but clearly voicing it very clearly.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what Tommy needed. You know, she realized that she couldn't live a half life as someone else with the person that she loved. And so they were able to find a way to their happily ever after together, which was wonderful. So I have a few that I want to share. I know I already shared some quotes, but I had some just like funny ones and author like good writing that I liked. So this one is Philippa and her mother. Her mother pursed her lips. That's exactly what a society is. A group of people with agreed upon methods of social extortion. Do this or suffer the consequences. We call it proper comportment so that it sounds nice. You cannot fight it. It is just the way things are. The way things are. Philippa was so tired of the way things were. Yeah, but I really love that. We call it proper comportment so that it sounds nice.
I like that. Yeah, it's very true. So this is this is when Philippa is basically, this is my other one that I have highlighted. And this is when Philippa is like, no, that asshole's going down. Like, I'm going to take him down. So it opens with, Tommy raced to block the closed library door. He will not be kind to you. Let him be cruel, Philippa lifted her chin. Being a wallflower has been my protection for far too long. People dismiss me. They think blue stockings are boring and worthless. Tommy still blocked the door. We're not boring. We're brave. We're clever. We're capable. And we're the reason that smug, lying plagiarists will not be crowned for someone else's achievements. Even if he tries to take you down with him, he cannot take away who I am. I shall be the Venus flytrap of wallflowers, the blue stocking whose books reveal the truth and demolish fraud, and we will do it in front of those he most wishes to impress, the people he's been lying to all along. Tommy considered this, then dropped her hand from the door. All right then, let's shatter illusions.
Oh, I like that. That's got layers.
Yeah. And it's just like, I love the writing of it. I love the visual of like, I will be the Venus flytrap of wallflowers, aka
So
she might
good.
be a wallflower, but she's going to get you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have a mushy one to end on. How
All
about
right.
that? So this is, I think, when they're considering an encounter or something like that. Tommy touched Philippa's fingers. Philippa took her hand and held on tight. I got to know you and trust you. The closer we became, the more fluttery I felt inside. Perhaps I needed to feel connected to you and trust you before I could relax and unlock my desire. It's not that I don't mind that you can be both a man and a woman. I like that about you. You're the first puzzle piece that fits. My feelings are real. I'm glad to have found them. Oh, I know. It was very, very sweet. And I just like that she felt unlocked and that there was a puzzle piece that fits and then she found her feelings. I just think that's really sweet. So anyhow, steaminess rating.
I thought of it as like sweet, like for me, not scalding, but I will say I found it hotter than expected.
Yeah.
But not like piping.
Fair enough. I think the tea was ready to drink. Like it was like perfectly right there, ready to drink. And maybe there was just like it was a little, like spicier than you thought it was going to be. Just the flavor.
Yeah. No, it was definitely, No, I liked it because there was like, sweet moments, but also too, like it was, I think what it also showed was like a very, I'm trying to think of the right words, a very modern way of how we want our romances to go, very much like an introduction to love and romance and an introduction to sex, but in a very positive way with a lot of permission, consent, all sorts of things. So I think that was really the enjoyable part of it too.
Yes. And there were 2 encounters in this one. So that's where we land on that.
So a little bit of something, but then again, we have a lot of adventure. So there's not a lot of time for encounters.
A lot of adventure. And this book is feminist.
I mean, if it's not, then something was wrong. If you don't see it as feminist, you clearly didn't read the same book we did. And there you go.
Yeah, there's just so much representation. And I think what I really loved about this book is that it helped me learn. You know, like I said, I kind of went into it like, oh, it's cool that Tommy's, you know, can dress up as the Baron and they could get married and live happily ever after that way. And it was like really a lesson in, but that's not happily ever after.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's very true. And I think that, there was a lot of learning, and I loved, again, the dynamics between it. And I think you get a little bit more of like, there's just a lot more going on there.
Yeah. Well, final book rating. I really enjoyed this book. I've been kind of saying that since the beginning. And I thought that this was a good book. I think that overall, the beginning was a little slow. That would be my maybe complaint, my own complaint, only complaint. I liked the caper. I liked the antics and the operation and the conclusion of that. Yeah. I liked the info you found out along the way. I was like, once we got kind of into it, I was so wrapped up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved the characters and their, and their sexualities and genders and, all the in-betweens of that. And I just want to see like more of that. I think it makes me a better person and a better reader to like read more and to see that. And I like it when everybody gets to live happily ever after. So my own enjoyment of this book, I'm going to give this book an 8.5. I think it was great.
Excellent. I will also give it an 8.5. I'm sorry, Oliver, did my sneeze wake you up? I will also give it an 8.5. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was a romp. It was like, again, a little slow, but then sped up. I liked the conclusion at the end of it. I liked the conclusion of the caper at the end of it. And almost am sad I don't get to learn more about the ladies in the book club, or at least maybe I will later on, because the reading circle is now going to meet at the Wynchesters. So like, I hope I see the ladies more, because I found them all very fascinating and I want to learn more about them.
Well, Tommy has 2 brothers. Graham is definitely not getting with one of the women of the reading circle, because we know who his heroine is, but she has, and why am I just relegating it to the brothers? She has 2 unmarried sisters as well. This
is true.
And Lady Eunice, I believe, was an older spinster heiress. So I could see something happening with her. And then, of course, Damaris. Like, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with Damaris. Anyhow, yes, I felt the same way. I was like, oh, I'm bummed. Maybe there'll be a spinoff series, or maybe they'll get books after the Wynchesters. But then you're right. Now that the Wynchester's house is the place that the reading circle meets, there are so many more opportunities for those characters to run into each other.
So I hope we see more of them in the future, because I really enjoyed them and I'd love to learn more about them, maybe get a hint at a story for them, or at least see if they can be involved in some capers too.
Yes. There's a whole bunch of very smart women with all sorts of skills in that reading group. So definitely. Well, this book was fabulous, but we are sadly done with it.
Sadly, we are. I mean, if you were intrigued, you can read it. And again, the sequel's coming out. But for us, what are we reading next time?
Well, next time we're reading a new release, which is A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. And this features a openly trans character. So I am really excited to continue our Pride Month and read this book. This book came out, I think, May 24th. So you should be able to get it now if you'd like to read along. And Alexis Hall is fairly well known for his contemporary writings. So I'm also excited to be reading a book by a male identifying author. We haven't done that on the podcast.
No, we haven't. That's a new one for us. And to have such an intriguing book to read as well.
Yes, and the cover is so cute. Anyhow, I'm excited.
Yes, you were. You were excited about this. This was another book on our books to look out for in 2022. So Zoe was very excited then and was immediately like, we're reading this? BT dubs. It's going to be on the podcast. So I'm excited to read it as well.
If we want more books like this, It's our job to read them, review them, and shout about them from the rooftops. Good, bad, ugly, all of those things make the genre better. But hopefully critically, not, we don't like to bash things.
No,
that's not our style.
That's not what we want to do.
And I'm going to say that my intuition says that we're not going to be bashing that book at all. I think we're going to be raving. So let's see. You'll have to tune in next time.
Yes. And before we go, once again, we are up on Patreon now. We're patreon.com/T as in Tom, N as in Nancy, Strumpets. So you can go and support us there. Your support there means that we can do more fun things for the show. We can upgrade our sound as well as do other fun things for you, our listeners. So please go ahead and check that out if you are able.
Yes, and there is no time like the present because it's really easy to forget. So if you're interested, patreon.com/T as in Tom, N as in Nancy, Strumpets. And join us next time as we finally get to read A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall.
And may all your ever afters end happily.